Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brendan Locke, Marketing Specialist with UL, and I thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. During this webinar, Marla Hedworth and Ainsley Butler from UL and Katherine BODOH from the American Gem Society will provide an overview on responsible sourcing with a focus on the Responsible Jewelry Council. During this webinar, before we get started, a couple of quick housekeeping items. Materials presented during this webinar are based on the best available information as of today. And as standards and regulations continue to evolve, information included in this presentation is subject to change. UL will continue to provide recommendations and consultations to our clients based on the newest and best information available. The information presented is provided by UL for educational and informational purposes only. The company makes no warranties or representations about specific dates, coverage, or applications. We recommend that you consult with appropriate legal counsel about the specific applications of the law to your business and products. Today's webinar will be conducted under mute conditions. We encourage you to ask questions using the chat window, which is located to the right of your screen. And time permitting, we will answer those questions in addition to any received during registration. Also, please take a moment to make sure that your computer speakers are set to an optimum listening level. Laptop users may want to attach a set of speakers for better listening quality. It is now my great pleasure to turn this broadcast over to Marla and Ainsley.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Brendan. Thank you to everyone at the American Gem Society for allowing us the opportunity to present this webinar today, and thank you to everyone on the line for joining. You all understand the larger global impact and the value of the important work of many of our industry partners. And therefore, we are committed to and supporting like-minded organizations such as the American Gem Society. In 2014, you all became a sustaining member of AGS and has been an active participant at AGS Conclave and speaking at several of the AGS Guild meetings. We're proud to support AGS in their dedication to consumer protection, scientific excellence, education, and ethical business practices in everything that the American Gem Society and the American Gem Society laboratories do to raise the bar in an industry we all love. I'm Marla Hedworth, and I'm part of UL's Business Development and Innovations team within our Consumer and Retail Services division. From a very young age, I've been passionate about gemology, which ultimately led me to earning my graduate gemology title at GIA's New York campus in residency. I've now had the pleasure of working for a variety of organizations across various sectors of the jewelry industry for now over 17 years, including time working at an AGS member store. I joined UL in 2013 and currently support UL services specific to jewelry, gemology, and precious metals across testing and inspections and responsible sourcing. I had the pleasure of meeting my now colleague, Ainsley Butler, several years ago during her time at the Diamond Development Initiative, where she developed the first artisanal diamond mining standard and when she became the co-chair of the Responsible Jewelry Council Standards Committee. We were thrilled when Ainsley joined the UL team in 2017, as she brings extensive knowledge and technical expertise within jewelry and responsible sourcing.
Thank you so much, Marla. It's always great to work with you, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to discuss responsible sourcing with you today, with Katherine, and with everyone on the line. Hello to all. My name is Ainsley Butler. I'm Responsible Sourcing Program Manager within UL's Advisory Services team. I'm the technical lead for jewelry and conflict minerals. I work a lot with UL's jewelry industry clients to develop responsible sourcing programs. And my own experience in the fine jewelry industry is very much linked to my work with the Responsible Jewelry Council through the Standards Committee and the Executive Committee.
Thank you, Ainsley. So looking over our agenda for today, we'll start off with a very brief overview of UL to provide some context and background as to how we support our clients and our work within the global jewelry industry. Ainsley will then walk us through a basic overview of a diamond and gold supply chains and move into responsible sourcing, the history, and current landscape. Moving then into an introduction of the Responsible Jewelry Council, what to expect and how to prepare for a third-party assessment, and small steps that you can take today and map out your roadmap for responsible sourcing within your store. So finishing up on the hour, we'll have a special guest join us, Katherine BODOH, Chief Executive Officer of AGS and AGS Laboratories, to share with us some of the key takeaways from when the AGS went through their RJC certification audit and why it was so important for AGS to become an RJC member. Lastly, we'll open it up to a live Q&A session to address any questions those joining on the line may have. For over 123 years, UL has employed exacted scientific processes and the highest ethical principles to deliver trusted results, serving as a global pioneer and advocate of safety and standards development. Today, UL solves the safety, security, and sustainability challenges of the 21st century. We empower trust and enable the safe adoption of innovation. Around the world, our employees share a common passion for our public mission to promote safe working and living environments for all people. With over 14,000 employees, 170 laboratories operating in 143 countries, UL tests, inspects, audits, certifies, verifies claims, advises, and trains, as well as provides software solutions. UL is driven to champion the safety challenges of tomorrow, helping safeguard people, product, places in new and innovative ways. It's always very surprising when we talk to the jewelry industry and they learn about our scope of services and how we support the global industry. So we wanted to share a bit about our work within the jewelry space. While many third-party laboratories and service providers traditionally blanketed their jewelry, precious metals, and gemological services under their hardline product categories, UL acknowledged the high level of understanding, expertise, and specialized services that are needed to service the global jewelry industry. In 2009, UL heavily expanded and invested in the recruitment and onboarding of seasoned jewelry industry professionals to work closely with our UL safety scientists, engineers, and consumer product experts, positioning UL as a trusted resource and partner to the global jewelry, gemological, and precious metals industry. In addition to our advisory and consulting services, there are 4 key categories and service groupings UL provides and has been providing to the jewelry industry in some instances for 50 years or longer: safety certification, responsible sourcing, testing, and product inspections. Starting with our safety certification services, and probably the one area that the jewelry industry and specifically many AGS member stores associate UL with, as we have certified many of the safes in your stores. UL certification services include working with safes, alarm systems, and ballistics testing to help create a safe working environment for you, your employees, and the product in your store. Responsible sourcing is the next area we work extensively within to support the industry. We provide a diverse range of audit and consulting services, including advisory and monitoring services in due diligence, conflict minerals, raw materials, traceability, environmental responsibility, and social compliance. UL contributed to the development of the Responsible Jewelry Council standards and has been conducting RJC Code of Practices audits since 2010. UL was the first firm to conduct the RJC Code of Practice audit, the first firm to conduct an RJC Chain of Custody audit, and the first firm to verify the RJC provenance claim. Additionally, UL was the first firm to conduct a harmonized fair mine and RJC audit, leading the industry to increase efficiencies and reduce audit fatigue and costs. Furthermore, UL is an approved auditing firm for many other certification bodies and clients, including Signet, Fairmind, the London Bullion Market Association, the Responsible Business Alliance, formerly known as the EICC, and the Responsible Minerals Initiative Conflict-Free Smelter Program. Within our global network of laboratories, we test fine, fashion, and children's jewelry for regulatory compliance and quality analysis. Everything from chemical compliance to ensure that there are no unsafe levels of heavy metals, such as lead or nickel, quality analysis on precious metals by fire assay and XRF technology to determine overall precious metal content, performance testing, tarnish and wear testing, and overall designs evaluations for safety. Additionally, our fine and fashion inspection services. Our UL field inspection team are global teams comprised of GIA graduate gemologists working in all of the major jewelry manufacturing centers around the world, who will actually go into factories and distribution centers and look at product either in production or when product is completed prior to shipment to ensure that all of your specifications are met, including, for example, that the diamond quality is correct, the gemstone color is within an acceptable range, and the product is properly stamped and packaged. Ultimately, our inspections teams are an extension of your quality assurance team, acting as you at various sectors of the global supply chain. Having this unique combination of jewelry experts paired with over a century of expertise that is UL has pioneered UL's Consumer and Retail Services division to be an industry leader with an innovative quality assurance and supply chain management for the global jewelry, precious metals, and gemological industries.
We wanted to take a quick look at two of the key supply chains for fine jewelry as an important context for our discussion today about responsible sourcing. Gold has been mined for centuries and is sourced around the world in 90 countries. The gold supply chain is quite complex, and global demand for gold is driven by jewelry manufacturing, which accounts for up to 80% of the gold used by consumers. The balance is bought by the electronics sector, the medical industry, and also gold is used as an investment option in global financial markets. It's important to be aware that gold can be sourced from high-risk areas, and processes should be in place to identify risks in the supply chain and know the sources of gold. Gold is considered a conflict mineral when its sale finances conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo or an adjoining country. The gold supply chain sources from both industrial and artisanal mines from where gold is processed through refining and smelting. An additional important source of gold is recycled. Once processed, gold is ready for manufacturing and trading. Gold products are then sold at retail or wholesale. The gold supply chain is supported by financial institutions, trade associations, and service companies. The diamond supply chain is also quite complex. On an annual basis, approximately 80 to 85% of natural diamonds are sourced from industrial mines, with the balance of 15 to 20% sourced through alluvial diamond mining from artisanal sources. The trade of rough diamonds is regulated by the Kimberley Process Certification Scheme, which is the institution established through a United Nations resolution charged with reducing the flow of conflict diamonds. Conflict diamonds are defined as rough diamonds used to finance wars against governments. It is illegal to trade in rough diamonds from a country that is not a member of the Kimberley process. As part of industry self-regulation, parcels of rough diamonds must also include the World Diamond Council System of Warranties Declaration on invoices. The declaration must state that the diamonds herein invoiced have been purchased from legitimate sources not involved in funding conflict and in compliance with the United Nations resolutions. The seller hereby guarantees that these diamonds are conflict-free based on personal knowledge and or written guarantees provided by the supplier of these diamonds. Rough diamonds are often sold through supplier agreements or through trading centers. They are then sorted, cut, and polished in preparation for jewelry manufacturing. The diamond industry is supported by financial institutions, trade associations, and service companies. Laboratory-grown diamonds are also available. These supply chain challenges related to lab-grown diamonds include disclosure of synthetics and differentiation with natural diamonds. Responsible sourcing has multiple dimensions. In general, responsible sourcing practices seek to establish, assess, track, and measure key aspects of sustainability across supply chains. From demonstrating safety, delivering quality and performance, and enhancing sustainability, responsible sourcing programming can help business improve their performance. In addition, best practices can build workforce excellence and advance societal well-being. Responsible sourcing programming enables companies to confirm their compliance and conformance with standards and codes. This results in strengthened security, improved transparency, and protection of brand reputation. Responsible sourcing is increasingly a key driver of consumer confidence in industry. There are some key milestones in the development of best practices in responsible sourcing in the jewelry supply chain that are important to note. The determination that artisanal and small-scale diamond mining was financing rebel groups in Sierra Leone and Angola in particular started the regulation of the rough diamond trade. As a result, a number of institutions were created to improve the diamond trade, including the World Diamond Council, which is the voice of industry at the Kimberley process. When it comes to gold, the No Dirty Gold campaign was an effort to bring attention to the environmentally destructive practices used in gold mining and to encourage ethical production. activist pressures resulted in different responses and market strategies by jewelry companies, with some companies adopting criteria for more responsible mining set out by the campaign. The Responsible Jewellery Council was established in 2005 in order to set a benchmark for the development of responsible business practices in the jewelry industry. In addition, certification schemes were established to provide certified sources of artisanally mined gold and diamonds. This is important from a societal perspective due to the very large number of people who are directly affected by artisanal mining taking place in their communities. A number of industrial mining standards have emerged in the last years, with the Responsible Mining Standard prepared by the Initiative for Responsible Mining Assurance to be launched this year in 2018. At a multinational level, the establishment of large-scale efforts to improve supply chains and business practices include the UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights and the OECD Due Diligence Guidance. A number of specialized organizations work on protecting the integrity of industry and upholding consumer confidence, such as the Diamond Producers Association. The Responsible Jewellery Council is the leading social auditing framework for the global fine jewelry supply chain, from mine to cutting and polishing, manufacturing, trading, and retail. It aims to build confidence and trust that jewelry, precious metals, and diamonds are produced and sourced responsibly. It was recently announced that the scope of RJC will be expanded to include silver and colored stones starting in 2019. Today, with over 1,000 members that include large and small businesses spanning the fine jewelry supply chain from mine to retail, RJC is scaling up and poised for the future. The RJC has two standards, the Code of Practices and the Chain of Custody. The Code of Practices is mandatory for all RJC members. When joining the RJC, companies have 2 years to become certified. The Code of Practices takes a management systems approach to demonstrate responsible business practices within the entire jewelry supply chain. The Chain of Custody standard is voluntary and covers traceability of gold and platinum group metals. It allows companies to engage in a segregated, fully traceable chain of custody. Recognition of other standards and inclusiveness are defining characteristics of RJC's work. For several provisions in the standards, they say that certification against an external standard is sufficient to demonstrate compliance. No further work is required. For example, RJC recognizes SA 8000, ISO 14001, also Fair Trade, Fair Mind, the LBMA Good Delivery Standard, and the World Gold Council's conflict-free gold standard. Companies that want to become certified against the RJC standards must first become members of RJC. As I stated, within 2 years of membership, companies must undergo a third-party audit. RJC publishes the certificates of its members on its website. In the commercial category, to be eligible for RJC membership, your company must be commercially active within the jewelry supply chain. Companies have many reasons to join the RJC and demonstrate that they're employing responsible business practices. Through membership, companies have access to a back office of resources and training related to responsible sourcing. There are various reasons that companies decide to pursue certification, and we wanted to look at 3 in particular. As a founding member of the RJC, Signet strongly endorses RJC's standards and encourages members of industry to join the RJC to improve industry performance on business excellence and transparency. Alrosa, the largest diamond producer in the world by volume, recently became RJC certified in order to underscore the importance of good business conduct and responsible sourcing within the fine jewelry supply chain. And Harriet Kelsall, a small UK jewelry company, joined RJC to demonstrate its commitment to integrating ethical, human rights, social, and environmental considerations into their business operations. Notwithstanding the benefits of RJC membership, there are critiques of RJC. Some jewelers are critical of the organization, saying that the standards are designed for big brands, the standards are too rigorous, membership and audit costs are too high, There's a lack of clarity about standards and RJC's mandate. And in some cases, there's a lack of volition to participate in an audit process. Civil society groups have also been critical of the RJC, stating that the standards are flawed and not rigorous enough to demonstrate responsible sourcing. RJC rejects suggestions that RJC has flawed standards or certification systems. RJC's mandate enables it to make progress in making jewelers more aware of the importance of responsible sourcing and getting the jewelry industry to adopt more responsible practices. For individual companies, there is an advantage to having membership in an organization like RJC, which can provide responses to claims and allegations on behalf of industry, rather than leaving companies to respond on an individual basis, which can be challenging, especially for small and medium-sized companies. The RJC certification process follows 5 steps, beginning with a self-assessment. The self-assessment is very important to prepare for the audit. Certification is based on management systems and a point-in-time snapshot based on a sampling process. Therefore, companies must have the full breadth of documentation available during the audit event. When companies are well prepared, they should select an audit firm and arrange for the audit. Following the audit, a report is sent both to the company and RJC for review. In some cases, a midterm review may be required prior to a recertification. Certification is valid for a 3-year period. Although RJC is not directly a consumer-facing organization, many companies elect to display their certification status on their websites and within their facilities.
In these next slides, we'll discuss exactly what happens during a third-party assessment, including how to prepare, what to expect during the actual audit event, and steps following the actual audit event leading to certification. For the purpose of this presentation for AGS and their member base, we have tailored the discussion to focus around small independent retailers, AGS members working towards RJC certification. We will also speak from the perspective of how UL approaches and manages the actual audit event. Keep in mind that for various sectors of the supply chain and various types of certification and monitoring, the overall process may be slightly different. For example, a factory social audit that a large big brand or retailer is requiring of one of their suppliers is typically a very different process. So starting off with the preparation and what might be considered the most important stage, your organization has decided to start your journey towards responsible sourcing, and one component of this is going through a formal certification. There's a large amount of preparation, including document preparation. A first step is to identify a member of your team or multiple members of your team to oversee this process. As small independent retailers, many do not have a dedicated quality assurance or compliance manager. Therefore, this could be an opportunity to engage interested members of your staff to take the lead within your organization for responsible sourcing. Once the team members have been identified, ensure that they have reviewed all of the applicable program manuals and workbooks, and that required documentation has been organized and will be available at the time of the audit. We have found that often when our audit team arrives for the actual audit event, the organization has not reviewed the RJC program manual. Additionally, we have learned that many organizations do not always document their internal process. It has been previously managed by so-called word of mouth. It is essential to document all internal process and procedures. If documents are not available or the auditor will have to wait for documentation, this could ultimately result in either non-conformances or additional days being added to the overall audit event. As you can imagine, not being prepared for the audit typically results in an overall delay in the process or additional financial burden. Based upon your organization and the sector or sectors of the supply chain you work within, explore all industry certifications to see if there's potential to maximize your audit event. Often there is cross-recognition or opportunity for audit harmonization. An example of this would be if you are a supplier to Signet and an RJC member. Signet's responsible sourcing protocols are developed for cross-recognition with the RJC. Another example would be the RJC certification in the Fairmine Gold standard. Often it's only a matter of adding the additional on-site time for the auditor for your organization to achieve multiple certifications. Many of your peers or your suppliers may have gone through a certification. Ask their insight on key takeaways and recommendations. As you know, we'll be chatting with Katherine later on in this hour, and she'll be sharing what the AGS team learned throughout their RJC certification process. Prepare your staff. Set up a dedicated time to speak to your staff about responsible sourcing, the certification and auditing process, and share with them why it is important to your organization. Let them know that they may be asked questions, they may be asked to participate in certain parts of the process, and that you would welcome any questions. Compile all of your and your team's questions and consider scheduling a call, both with the certification organization and the auditing firm, to address these questions. Mostly all of the certification bodies and auditing firms have teams set up to talk you through the process and are happy to help. You can most certainly call Ainsley and I, the UL team, and the AGS team with any and all questions. Finally, take a look at your calendar and identify a time that makes sense for you to have the actual audit event. Time is needed for preparation, and having the auditor on site will require your team's time and attention. For small stores with limited staff, keep this in mind. Try to find some windows within your store's calendar that tend to be on the quiet side. The holiday season and times when your team may be preparing for or traveling to a trade show or hosting an in-store event may not be ideal. This is a general summary of our recommendations from working with small independent retailers based upon our experience and feedback in preparing third-party assessments leading to certification. The audit event, what to expect. So you've reached the day of your actual audit. What does your audit event actually entail? Now we'll walk you through an overview of all of the stages in the actual audit. And note, there is no set order in this process other than the opening and closing meetings. Starting off, the auditor or a team of auditors have arrived at your location, introductions, and the opening meeting. The auditor or lead auditor will meet with the management team to review the policies and procedures for an on-site assessment. This includes reconfirming the agenda, describing the scope of the assessment, identifying parties involved, and estimating the overall assessment duration. At this time, you can discuss the schedule for the day with the auditor, along with clarify any questions you and your team may have. If you all is conducting the assessment, you will explain our integrity policy and reaffirm our confidentiality policy. The management interview. This will involve the auditor meeting management and your internal team that you have identified to oversee the certification process. A review of the workbook responses will be conducted. The auditor will gather basic information for report writing purposes and pose any questions regarding system implementation. The documentation review process. The auditor will thoroughly review the workbook responses and select samples of documentation for review to identify any non-compliances. Policies and implementation documentation will be reviewed along with licenses, written policies, personnel files, payroll and working hour documentation, collective bargaining agreements, employee contracts, and employee health and safety records. Keep in mind that this is a social audit to confirm compliance with a standard and not a financial audit. Some invoices may be reviewed in the event you are making a claim as an organization, such as a specific provenance claim, like 100% Canadian mined diamonds, or a specific marketing claim, such as 100% recycled gold. For an RJC certification audit, the auditor will review for your Kimberly Process System of Warranties documentation. This portion is not a full audit of your KP documentation, only a review. Private employee interviews. These interviews with employees and management provide insight into actual working conditions. Employee selections for interviews are made at random and so that a representative sample of the workforce is captured. The interviews are conducted in a private room with no management present and confidential. However, employees can opt out should they choose not to participate. The auditor will reassure the employee on confidentiality and should assist in making employees feel comfortable explaining the purpose of the interview. Questions are simple and there's no wrong answer. Management is forbidden from interfering in the employee interview process through employee coaching or by speaking with employees post-interview to ask about information provided to the auditor during interviews. The facility walkthrough. The auditor will conduct a walkthrough of all areas where your employees may be present, including the retail sales floor, production areas that perhaps your bench jewelers work, break rooms, inventory storage, vault room, laboratories, and back offices. The auditor will be focusing on understanding operations on-site and workplace safety. They will not be focusing on product specifications or any other confidential or proprietary information. If you have a designated health and safety manager or a human resource manager, they would generally accompany the auditor or someone equipped to answer questions about the safety practices at the facility and overall questions that may arise from observations. Auditors may wish to take photos during the walkthrough to capture the general layout of the workspace, as well as any potential non-conformances. The closing meeting. Now we have reached the conclusion of the audit event and the closing meeting. The auditor will share a summary of non-compliances directly with management and review any areas for potential improvement. The auditor will assign the facility a rating based on the severity of the findings as laid out in a grading scorecard. Management is asked to sign off on the summary report. After the audit is completed, the auditing firm will send the organization a member report and then a summary report to the RJC, at which time the RJC will make a determination on certification. The member report is a more detailed report and contains all information from the audit. The summary report that the RJC receives does not contain any confidential details. If there are major or critical non-conformances found, the auditor will also send the member a corrective action plan. The member will have to complete the corrective action plan, at which time the auditor will then review, and this corrective action plan will be included with the summary report to the RJC. There are a variety of outcomes based upon your performance on the initial audit that can ultimately impact the RJC's determination on your certification. So what can you do to implement a responsible sourcing program in your store today? Start by reviewing applicable standards and available material. There is a large amount of publicly accessible material and trainings available to you and your team. The RJC has extensive training materials, included recording webinars on their website that anyone can access. Existing protocols, such as Signet's responsible sourcing protocols and De Beers best practices principles, are also readily available online. The Jewelers Vigilance Committee Essentials Guide series is an excellent resource for education on legal compliance. Again, this is all available online and a great starting point for small independent retailers. Conduct an internal assessment of your store. Compare your current practices to the RJC standard and identify any gaps. Ask your suppliers about their responsible sourcing programs. Seek out suppliers that are certified. The RJC and the LBNA, for example, list their certified members online for anyone to review. Asking these questions to your suppliers and working with suppliers who are committed to responsible sourcing will not only give you a deeper insight into your supply chain, it demonstrates your commitment and sets the overall expectation of responsible sourcing to your suppliers. Get involved. There's a lot of focus currently on responsible sourcing within the industry. If you're attending the upcoming AGS Conclave show or JCK show, seek out the educational seminars and events on this topic to attend. There are events happening throughout the year in various cities you can attend, such as the Chicago Responsible Jewelry Conference, the International Gold Conference, and the Jewelry Industry Summit and events. Many of these events are open and intimate forums on sustainability and responsible sourcing with participation from multiple sectors of the supply chain, in which you can learn what others are doing within the organization and overall best practices. Create a go-forward plan. Review the gaps that you've identified during your internal assessment and establish priorities. Start with the most urgent areas for improvement. An example would be if you're not documenting your business process, start documenting. If you do not have an employee handbook, work with your team and your HR team to start creating one. Consider having your organization certified either now or in the future. Understanding that going through a certification may feel like an overwhelming process. You can start small with these steps identified. If you are considering undergoing a formal certification for your organization, there are professional services available to help you prepare. Based upon feedback from our clients in the industry, UL has developed a service, what we call an organizational pre-assessment. This service is an expert benchmark of your organization's business practices. We conduct a formal assessment of your practice against prevailing standards and legal compliance. This is not a consulting service prior to certification. UL will provide you with a summary of where your business is today. Note that when undergoing a formal certification, if non-conformances are found, your organization may have to enter a re-audit or more frequent certification audits, which could ultimately result in additional fees. The simpler assessment will provide you with an early discovery of areas needed for improvement. So we've covered a large amount of content today, and our UL team truly hopes that you found the presentation valuable. We took care and attention in providing information that we felt was applicable to AGS members and small independent retailers overall. Finishing up with the technical portion of the presentation, we felt what better way to conclude then with a chat with Katherine BODOH, the CEO of AGS, and to gain her perspective on responsible sourcing and share key takeaways from when AGS became a certified member of the RJC. So, hi, Katherine. Can you hear us?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the hard work on putting this together.
Yeah, so Katherine, thank you so much for joining us. And again, thank you to you and AGS for the opportunity for us to present to your member base. So a couple questions as we talk through this kind of interview process. AGS's mission statement confirms that AGS members are dedicated to setting the highest standards of ethical conduct and professional behavior through education, accreditation, and recertification of its membership, gemological standards, and gemological research. As responsible sourcing has been gaining momentum and focus within the jewelry industry, how does AGS plan to incorporate responsible sourcing best practices into your organization? And what advice do you have at this time for your members?
We plan to continue to curate great content on these topics and then share them through our channels. As you talked about, Conclave is coming up, and that's one great resource to find additional information. My advice to members is to be proactive and start now. This topic is not going away, and it's time for us to start getting in front of it and talking about it with our customers.
And so what is your recommendation for AGS members regarding overall responsible sourcing and responsible jewelry council membership?
I think RJC has great resources, and I really think I encourage members to take advantage of some of the items that you listed. There's a ton of information out there that's accessible, and to tackle it one piece at a time, I think it can be a little overwhelming to learn all about the content and what needs to be done. The key is just trying to break it into bite-sized pieces.
So Katherine, the American Gem Society's Laboratories is an RJC certified member. Could you share with us why, as an organization, AGS decided to become an RJC member and why it was so important, and a little bit more about your certification process?
Sure. So with our mission of consumer protection and being a member of RJC, it was just a logical next step to pursue the RJC certification 2 years ago. In keeping with the mission of AGS and the principles upon which the lab was founded, we embarked on what turned out to be a very valuable journey for us. The process allowed us to put our own process under the microscope, literally, and allowed us to use that self-assessment portion that you talked about to take a bigger picture view, especially around environmental impact and product disclosure, things that we hadn't thought of on a regular basis in the lab.
So how did you actually prepare for the audit?
So we took some of your suggestions. We had a team lead. We have a relatively small team too. And so we don't have designated health and safety officers. We have a one-person HR team. So for us, it was really important to get everyone involved. We had a team lead. We broke it into pieces. It took us a while to get it done. We scheduled regular meetings to hold people accountable, but we really got the whole team involved. And then each team worked on sections of the process, and then we put it all together at the end. And I know when you talk about audit and auditors, it sounds very formal, and it is, but the auditor was also very helpful, friendly, and nice, and really walked us through the process. So it wasn't as daunting as it sort of can sound. We really learned a lot and found that auditor was our partner in making sure that we were doing everything we needed to do. It was a great experience.
Great. So it sounds like you really engaged your full team to be a part of the process.
Absolutely. It's critical, especially in smaller organizations. One person can't tackle all of this material. It's truly a team effort.
What are some of your important learnings from the process? I mean, I know you shared a bit with us about the preparation. Any key takeaways from the actual certification process?
I think we expected to have a lot of learnings regarding our processes and priorities versus training and all of that, and we definitely achieved those takeaways and milestones. But I think that overall, our biggest takeaway was that the team, when we accomplished this goal as a team, it made everyone really proud to work for an organization that had gone through this process and passed it. And it turned into a very valuable team building and just another reason to work for our organization. And they were truly proud of the culture and the process that was developed. And I think that was the biggest takeaway for us. And something that, I don't know that we anticipated when we went into the process.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Any last thoughts before we wrap up of things that you'd like to share with your member base?
I think start now, tackle it, take one best practice at a time, start the process now. And I think tell the story to your employees so they see it as a win. Build the culture. This can align multi-generational workforces. This is something everyone can get behind. This dialogue needs to be happening more in the industry, and our customers will be asking about it. And it's not enough just to go through the process. I think we have to incorporate that into the story we tell and the information we share, from us with our manufacturers, our members, and with our retailers to their end customers.
Well, thank you, Katherine. Now you shared some very valuable insight into AGS's certification process and overall and responsible sourcing. So thank you.
Yes, and I'm always welcome to talk to anyone in more depth too that's interested, and we can share what we did and how we can help you in the process.
Excellent. So I think at this time, we're going to open it up to anyone on the line if they have any questions. And you can type these into the chat box. So
We don't have any questions currently, but we'll pause for 30 seconds as people type them in.
okay, thanks.
We just got one from Philip Bozen. Can you mention a few AGS retailers that have gone through the process and how they have benefited from it?
So this is Marla speaking. So the RJC makes public all of their all their members and their certified members. So anyone can actually go onto their website, to the RJC's website, and see what AGS retailers have actually been certified. And I'll hand it over to Katherine to see if she can speak on their behalf on the process or how they've benefited.
So I think we've had more manufacturers and suppliers go through the process than retailers. So I think we do have a few members. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's something that we can certainly ask when we put up content if we have any of the retailers that would like to share their stories. And I think that would be a great follow-up to this conversation.
Yeah. Some of the feedback that I know that we've gained from working with retailers on their certification is that it gives their staff at all levels essentially talking points. And the RJC does an amazing job on providing trainings, webinars, very extensive materials. And so it's essentially, there's a lot of accessible training materials and provides retailers and specifically their frontline sales staff with the education to speak to the consumer. So it looks like, Brendan, do we have any more questions coming in?
The only other comment we had was there was a couple of technical issues with the presentation, but there will be a recording and a presentation deck available. So any content that might have been missed can be reviewed.
Sure. And I
have
actually
one more question.
Yeah, we have another question from Philip. Do you have a sense of the cost to a retailer to become RJC certified, sliding scale for multiple locations?
So we would recommend, the retailer would have to first become an RJC member. In regards to the actual audit event, it is based upon the size and scope of your organization. So for example, if you have multiple locations, that would be a larger audit event. What we can do is we are happy to work with you all if you would like to reach out to us, or we could follow up with you directly on scoping your organization and what the audit certification process would actually entail. But it's a very wide range depending on the size and scope of your organization, along with your supply chain. Leading into that though, we actually, for any questions or anyone who's on the line who's going to be attending AGS Conclave, well, we would welcome you to reach out to our UL teams directly following this, but Ainsley Butler is going to be speaking at a breakout session at Conclave. So please reach out to her, go see her in Nashville at Conclave, and she'll be happy to meet with you to schedule a meeting one-on-one, or just come by and say hello. And again, if you had any specific questions regarding anything on the content of this presentation or starting your organization's journey to responsible sourcing, please reach out to us and we're happy to meet with you directly. So thank you everyone, and thank you to Katherine and the American Gem Society team. And thank you to everybody on the line who joined today.